A Supreme Court move just hit the internet like a grenade, and the way people are describing it could get you fooled fast. Quick question before we continue. Are you subscribed? Because what I am about to explain could save you from believing a legal update that S flat out wrong. Hit subscribe right now, and let's break this down together. Here's what just happened, in plain English, with no fluff. You've probably seen this line: the Supreme Court secretly ruled 6-3, and now Trump has no legal options left. That sounds dramatic. It sounds final. It sounds like the movie is over. But law is not a movie. Most of the time, when people say secret ruling, they're talking about something that feels fast and confusing. That's usually an emergency order. The court might act quickly. Sometimes it does not write a long explanation right away. Sometimes it does not hear full arguments first. People call that the shadow docket. That doesn't mean it's hidden. It means it's an emergency lane. And the internet loves to turn that lane into a conspiracy story. Now here's the important part. There really was a 6-3 decision that changed a lot. It just didn't do what the clickbait claims. So let me break this down for you in a way you can use in real life, especially if you own guns and you follow federal rules closely. First thing you need to understand is what this 6-3 ruling was actually about. The case people keep pointing to is about universal injunctions. That's a big term. So let me explain it like you're explaining it to a friend. An injunction is a court order that says, stop doing that. A universal injunction is when one judge says, government, stop doing that for everybody in the whole country, even though only certain people sued. That one tool has been a massive weapon in politics and in gun cases. If a new rule comes out, people sue. They ask a judge to freeze it. If the judge issues a nationwide block, it can protect millions of people instantly. But in Trump versus CASA, Inc., the Supreme Court said universal injunctions likely go beyond what federal courts are allowed to do under traditional equity powers. Equity here just means the court's power to create fairness-based remedies like injunctions. The court granted a partial stay. That means it narrowed the lower court orders, at least for now, while the litigation continues. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This type of ruling doesn't always make the front page for regular people, but it changes the ground rules for how fast the government can be stopped in future cases. And yes, that can affect you as a gun owner, because so many gunfights today happen in the injunction phase. That's the early phase where everyone is trying to stop a rule before it spreads. Now imagine what happens if the new normal becomes plaintiff's only protection. That means a judge might stop the rule only for the people who sued, or only for certain groups, or only for certain states. And if you're outside that group, the rule might still apply to you. Most people get this wrong. They see a headline that says, rule blocked. Then they assume they are safe. But if courts are forced to issue narrower orders, you might not be covered at all. Let me give you a hypothetical example to make this real. Imagine the ATF releases a new rule about a firearm accessory. You watch the news, then a big gun group posts, we got an injunction, you're safe. You breathe easy, but you aren't a member of that group. You're not a named plaintiff. You're not in a class action. You're not in the state that sued. Now imagine you're at a traffic stop. The officer asks about your firearm. You're calm, you're polite, you think you're legal. But the officer's system shows the new rule still applies in your area. The officer might not care about your favorite YouTuber's headline. The officer cares about what's enforceable today. Then you say, a judge blocked it. And now you were standing on the side of the road trying to argue your way out of a legal mess using a court order you never actually read. That is the risk. Not Trump has no options. The real risk is regular people thinking they are protected when they are not. Second thing you need to understand is why the Suzu Trump has no legal options left line does not fit this kind of case. The CASA ruling is not a criminal case about Trump as a defendant. It's about the power of courts to stop executive actions broadly. So if Trump is president and he issues an executive order, lawsuits may still stop parts of it. But a single judge might not be able to freeze it nationwide for everyone, at least not in the same way as before. If Trump is not president and he's fighting criminal cases, this universal injunction issue is not the last lifeline people claim it is. Criminal cases do not work like that. You don't usually escape a criminal case because some judge in another case blocked a policy for everybody. So when you hear someone say, this changed everything and now Trump has no options left, you should ask one question. Options for what exact case? Because without that answer, it's just vibes and drama. Now let's talk about the other big 6-3 decision people mix into this story, because this is where the confusion explodes. In July 2024, the Supreme Court decided Trump versus United States, the presidential immunity case. The court said this in simple terms. A president has absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within core constitutional powers, and a president has at least presumptive immunity for official acts more broadly. But there is no immunity for unofficial acts. Then the court sent key parts back to the lower court to decide what is official and what is unofficial. That matters, because it can limit which charges survive, which evidence is allowed, and how the case moves forward. But here's the part that shocks people. That ruling does not mean Trump can never be prosecuted. It also does not mean Trump has no legal options. If anything, it created more legal arguments that have to be sorted out. And sorting things out takes time. Time means delay. Delay means politics. And politics means more noise online. Now, if you're thinking, okay, but where does gun law fit into all of this? Here's where it fits. The Supreme Court decisions are setting rules for how power gets checked. If courts can't easily stop the government nationwide, then the early days of any major gun rule could look very different. Instead of one national freeze, you could see a patchwork. Some states are protected, some are not. Some groups are protected, some are not. Some people are protected, some are not. And if you've ever wondered why gun law feels like a minefield, this is why. Because the law you see on social media might not be the law that applies to you. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video about the 5 words that can protect you when police ask about your gun. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because that one is practical and it matters in the real world. Now let's keep going, because there's another 6.3 decision that people keep blending into this Trump is finished story. In June 2024, the Supreme Court decided Fischer versus United States, which narrowed the reach of a federal obstruction statute. In simple terms, the court read that law more narrowly than prosecutors wanted. A lot of people summarized it like this. It limited how that obstruction charge can be used, especially in January 6th related cases. That does not automatically erase cases. But it changes how prosecutors must prove certain charges, and it may force courts to recheck whether the facts fit the statute. So again, that does not equal no legal options. That equals the fight changes shape. Now here's the part nobody's talking about, and I want you to really hear me. These decisions together are not a clean win for either side. They are a reshaping of the legal battlefield, and you can see it in 2 lanes. Lane 1 is about criminal prosecution of presidents and former presidents and how immunity works. Lane 2 is about remedies, meaning what a lower court is allowed to do when it thinks the government is acting unlawfully. And gun owners should care deeply about Lane 2, because a lot of gun rights, especially at the federal level, get defended through emergency lawsuits and injunctions. When someone tells you a judge blocked it, you need to know what kind of block it is. Is it a nationwide block? Is it only for the plaintiffs? Is it only in one district? Is it only in one circuit? Is it temporary, like a TRO? Is it a preliminary injunction? Is it stayed on appeal? These details sound boring until you're the person who gets caught in the gap. Let me paint another hypothetical. You're not doing anything wrong on purpose. You're a normal person. You work. You have a family. You like to shoot on weekends. A new federal rule drops, and it's confusing. You do what everyone does. You go online. You see 10 creators saying, "You're safe. It got blocked." But none of them tells you the most important part. Who is covered? If you don't know this, here's what could happen. You might change nothing. You might keep your setup the same. You might travel across state lines. Then you find out the hard way that the block never applied to you. That's why I always tell people, don't just watch the headline. Watch the scope. Now, quick legal note. This is educational information, not legal advice. Always consult an attorney for your specific situation. Now, this is where the secret ruling language becomes dangerous, because it tricks you into thinking the law is a hidden game. It's not hidden, it's written down. What's hidden is the truth behind the influencer's summary. A real legal update sounds like this. The Supreme Court limited universal injunctions that may reduce nationwide relief in early lawsuits. That could change how fast rules are blocked. A fake legal update sounds like this. Secret 6-3 ruling ended everything. Trump has no options. You're doomed. Buy my course. See the difference? One is information. The other is emotional manipulation. Now I want to bring it back to Trump for a second, because some of you clicked for that. When someone says Trump has no legal options left, they're trying to sell finality. But the truth is, Trump's legal fights involve multiple cases, multiple courts, multiple deadlines, and multiple kinds of motions. Even in cases where the Supreme Court rules on something big, the lower courts often still have to do the next steps. They have to apply the Supreme Court's rules to specific facts. They have to decide what evidence is allowed. They have to decide what gets dismissed and what survives. That process creates options. It does not erase them. So if you're seeing creators act like a Supreme Court move is the end of the road, it's usually a sign they're overselling. Now let me flip the camera back to you, because your life is the part that matters. Here are the mistakes I do not want you to make. Mistake number 1 is assuming a court order is national just because it's popular online. Mistake number 2 is assuming a court order lasts forever. Mistake number 3 is assuming I saw a video is a defense. It's not. Law enforcement is not required to follow your timeline. Courts are not required to respect your misunderstanding. And prosecutors do not care that a creator used the word secret. Now, this is where it gets even more serious for gun owners. If broad injunctions become harder to get, then organizations will likely push harder for class actions. A class action is when a court certifies a group, and the ruling can apply to that group as a whole if the legal rules are met. Class actions have requirements. Courts don't just hand them out. But if universal relief gets limited, class actions become a more important tool. You may also see more state-led lawsuits, because states can sometimes show broad harms and ask for broad relief. And you may see more circuit splits, where one federal appeals court says one thing and another circuit says another. That is exactly how issues climb back up to the Supreme Court. But while that climb is happening, you could live inside a patchwork. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why two people can do the same thing and one is fine and the other gets charged? A big part of the answer is jurisdiction. Where you are matters. Which court covers your area matters. Which order applies to your area matters. That's why nationwide and universal language matters so much, and it's why this CASA ruling matters. Not because it ends Trump's life, but because it can change the early protection phase in major federal fights. And now I'm going to give you something practical, because I don't want this to be just theory. Next time you see a headline that says, "Rule blocked," train yourself to ask these questions. What court issued the order? What exactly did it block? Who is protected by it? How long does it last? Is it stayed or appealed? If you can't answer those, then you don't really know what changed, and you should not change your behavior based on that headline. Now, some people will say, okay, but why should I care? I'm not Trump. I'm not a politician. You should care, because the system that handles Trump is the same system that handles you. The same courts that decide remedies and scope decide gun cases, too. The same rules that control what lower judges can do control what happens when you sue over an ATF rule. And if you're thinking, that sounds like it could take years, you're right. That's why you must stay updated. Because a temporary block today can vanish tomorrow. An appeal can change everything. And a Supreme Court move can reshape the whole map. Hey, 73% of people watching right now aren't subscribed. Don't be part of that group. Join the gun owners who get these updates first without the clickbait spin. Click subscribe and you'll stay ahead of the rumors. Now, let's talk about the claim that Trump has no legal options left one last time. And I'll put a clean bow on it. When people say that, they're usually doing one of three things. One, they're confusing a remedies case with a criminal case. Two, they're mixing multiple Supreme Court decisions into one fake mega story. Three, they're hoping you won't check anything, because emotion sells. In reality, the Supreme Court's moves in these areas create more legal questions that courts must answer. What is an official act? What is an unofficial act? What evidence can be used? What statutes cover what conduct? What kind of injunction can a court issue? Can it protect everyone, or only the parties? Can a state claim broad harm, or does it need narrower relief? Those are legal options. Those are legal fights. And they don't disappear just because someone says secret in a title. Now, I want to bring this back to gun owners in a way that could protect you. If courts move toward narrower injunctions, you should expect more confusion online. You should expect more creators overstating what a court order does. You should expect more people saying, "We won," when the order only covers certain plaintiffs. And you should expect more people getting hurt by bad info. That can mean criminal exposure. It can mean losing your gun rights. It can mean huge legal fees. It can mean your life getting flipped upside down, even if you were trying to follow the law. That's why I keep saying this. Don't make decisions based on headlines. Make decisions based on what applies to you. And if you can't tell what applies to you, that's the moment to slow down and ask a qualified attorney. This information could literally expire after January 2026, depending on how these cases develop and how courts apply the rules going forward. Subscribe now, because the next video will explain exactly what you should do before deadlines hit and how to avoid living in the legal gray zone. Let's close this out with the real takeaway. The big takeaway is not Trump is finished. The big takeaway is that the Supreme Court is reshaping how powerful lower court blocks can be, and that change can hit gun cases too. Stay calm, stay informed, and don't let viral legal drama push you into careless choices. If you got value from this, do me a favor. Subscribe and share this with one friend who always falls for clickbait legal videos. You might save them from a real mistake. And one last disclaimer in simple terms. I'm not your lawyer. This is general education, not legal advice. Laws vary by state and your facts matter. If you need guidance for your exact situation, talk to a qualified attorney where you live.